When you walk into the British Museum in London, you're greeted by a slab of grey stone surrounded by a dense crowd of onlookers. It's also surrounded by some of ancient Egypt's most beautiful, poignant and striking artefacts, but none of them draw or hold a crowd quite like it. It is so beloved an artifact that the museum also houses a replica specifically in place so that visitors can lay their hands upon it. The Rosetta Stone is one of Egyptology's most iconic treasures, and was probably the most iconic until the discovery of Tutankhamun's funeral mask, 120 years after the stone arrived in London. I would guess that most people watching this are aware of its place in modern history, but let's go back to its roots. Why does it have pride of place, where, for example, the Natural History Museum has a replica Diplodocus skeleton? Oh, no, had. They've got that whale now. #justice for Dippy. Why is the Rosetta Stone such a cultural force that one of the world's most prominent language learning software suites is named after it, and it's become a generic term for language decoding? And how did it end up all the way in London? In this video and a few upcoming, I'm going to talk about the stone's history, its place in our history, and perhaps a little speculation about its future. We'll start at the beginning. What was the Rosetta Stone before it became the Rosetta Stone? The stone gets its name from the town of Rashid, which was corrupted to Rosetta or Rosette by Europeans, because it was found nearby. It didn't originate there and was never intended to be where it was found. More on that in next week's video. It was a stela, which is a word for all kinds of monuments. A modern gravestone is a stela, boundary markers and milestones are stelae, so they vary from the highly ceremonial to the entirely utilitarian. The stela that would become the Rosetta Stone was, as with many things in ancient Egypt, a blend of the two. Why did I call it the stela that would become the Rosetta Stone? Well, for two reasons. First, of course, it wasn't called that when it was made, but also, the Rosetta Stone is only the remains of the overall monument. Most of the topmost text, written in hieroglyphs, is lost, and we can only speculate on its original shape, contents, and decorations. Even its colour isn't original. The stone is protected by a wax coating which darkens it, and the writing upon it has been illuminated painstakingly with chalk. The stone is one of many that were created and distributed throughout Egypt following the coronation of Ptolemy Epiphanes, the fifth pharaoh of his dynasty. The stela served as a proclamation of the king's divinity, hence this reconstruction displaying the king being officially presented before the major gods of the time, as seen in other stelae. It includes directions on how and when the king is to be honoured.
These days, the 17th and the 30th, are to be celebrated as festival every month in all the temples of Egypt. And they are to make burnt offerings and libations and the other things which it is customary to do. And they are to celebrate festival and procession in the temples and all of Egypt for Pharaoh Ptolemy, each year on the first day of the first month of inundation for 5 days, wearing garlands and making burnt offerings and libations and the other things it is fitting to do.
The king's piety is described, even as he is proclaimed a god himself.
The honours befitting the temples and the other honours of Egypt he has established in their order according to law. He has given gold, silver and grain in plenty, and other things for the temple of the Apis. He has had the new work completed in exceedingly beautiful work. He has had completed temple, shrine and altar anew for the gods. He has caused other things to be put in order, being at heart a god beneficent towards the gods.
There are, of course, 3 scripts used on the stone to represent 2 languages. Hieroglyphs and Demotic more or less repeat the Egyptian version of the proclamation, and Greek letters are used for the same proclamation in Greek. Well, the same proclamation in theory. The Demotic, which by this era of Egypt's history was fast becoming the language of formal officialdom, surpassing hieroglyphs and hieratic, seems to be the original text. It reads the most fluently. The Greek text, while grammatically fine, reads very strangely, because some of the concepts and terminology used by the Egyptians weren't properly or sensibly translated into Greek. When describing a ritual honouring the king, for example, the Greek text commands that crowns be placed, quote, on the square surface, which is a bizarre way of translating the Demotic inscription, which clearly points to, quote, the upper side of the Atef crown. Likewise, the hieroglyphic inscription is unnecessarily difficult to read. In large part, it's missing a kind of sign called a determinative, a meaning sign that helps the reader know which of several different homonyms a given word might be. This means the text would read less than fluently, even to a contemporary Egyptian proficient in reading hieroglyphs. And this gives us the impression that the author, or translator, or both, were more comfortable in demotic. Or perhaps they weren't given much time to carve the inscription and cut a few corners. There was nothing special in antiquity about this stela. It was one of many with the same or similar messages, and it's this lack of uniqueness in its own time, coupled with its central role in the story of modern Egyptology, that I think gives it a strange place in debates around the repatriation of Egyptian artifacts. I'll talk about that in another video. But how did it get its central role in modern Egyptology? Why, of all the stelae in all of Egypt, was this the key that unlocked the hieroglyphs to modern scholarship? Next week, I'll reveal what happened to the stone after the Ptolemies became nothing more than history, and how some would rather destroy it than see it fall into the hands of the British. Thank you as always for watching. Please remember to hit like if you did like, it really helps get my videos in front of more armchair Egyptologists. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of January, so if you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. You probably don't know who Ptolemy Epiphanes is, but you should know who these people are, my lovely backers at patreon.com/armchairegypt, whom we should honour with libations and burnt offerings. Or I guess, just Patreon rewards and sincere thanks. Until next time, my fellow armchair Egyptologists, life, prosperity, and health to you all. Thanks for watching. Head over to my channel for more, or click here to see what the YouTube demons think you should watch next. I hope you'll consider subscribing. If you'd like to support and collaborate on the channel with me, go to patreon.com/armchairegypt. You can also join my Discord community, there's an invite link in the description.